1. 7 things you really ought to know about the Queen. I'm Jamie East. This is the Smarter 7.
In this episode of The Smarter 7, we take a look in more detail at a significant moment in history that gets you up to speed on the what, the why and the how. As Queen Elizabeth celebrates her Platinum Jubilee, this episode takes a look at the past 7 decades of her reign.
How much is that dog in the window?
It was announced from Sandringham at 10:45 today that the King, who retired to rest last night in his usual health, passed peacefully away in his sleep earlier this morning.
The 50s were a time of change in Great Britain. Following the death of her father in 1952, Princess Elizabeth Alexandra Mary Windsor ascended to the throne, making her Queen of the United Kingdom and the Commonwealth.
Now, with the great officers, the Archbishop moves to the south, faces the Duke of Edinburgh, the other princes of the blood, and the massed assembly of the peers.
Sirs, I here present unto you Queen Elizabeth, your undoubted Queen.
She was crowned in June 1953 at Westminster Abbey, following a succession of kings and queens who'd been crowned there for nearly a millennium. At not even 30 years old, she delivered her coronation oath, which was heard by millions around the world. In her speech, she looks to a bright future under her reign as monarch.
I am sure that this, my coronation, is not the symbol of a power and a splendour that are gone, but a declaration of our hopes for the future, and for the years I may, by God's grace and mercy, be given to reign and serve you as your Queen.
The monarch's Christmas message was a tradition that started in 1932 with King George V, and 1957 brought with it the first televised Queen's Christmas message. In it, Her Majesty summed up how much the 1950s had brought change to the world.
Today, things are very different. I cannot lead you into battle. I do not give you laws or administer justice. But I can do something else. I can give you my heart and my devotion to these old islands and to all the peoples of our brotherhood of nations.
The 1960s ushered in a new era for the Queen. The family welcomed another addition with the birth of Andrew, and for the first time ever, they also welcomed cameras into the family home to document them off duty. The 105-minute colour documentary called Royal Family was broadcast across England in 1969. In the swinging 60s, it was an attempt to revive public interest in an institution widely seen at the time as out of touch and irrelevant.
I stood in the middle of the room and pressed the bell and the doors opened, and there was a gorilla. And I had the most terrible trouble.
The decade came to an end with possibly its most iconic moment.
It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
With the Apollo 11 crew, a message from Queen Elizabeth was sent to the moon etched on a disc alongside messages from 72 other world leaders. Upon their return, the astronauts stopped at Buckingham Palace as part of their world tour, meeting the Queen, Prince Philip, Princess Anne, Prince Andrew and Prince Edward.
There was much to talk about. Later, the astronauts commented on how well-informed and interested in the American moon program were Her Majesty and the Duke. In their own words, Armstrong, Aldrin and Collins said the meeting was delightfully memorable. As the 70s rolled in, the colour of the decade was certainly silver. On November the 20th, 1972, Queen Elizabeth II and Prince Philip celebrated 25 years of marriage with their silver wedding anniversary. The public lined the streets of London as the royal couple took a car ride through the capital, waving to the crowds.
The royal car drives past the crowd on its way back to Buckingham Palace.
However, the main event of the 70s was the Queen's Silver Jubilee. In 1977, Her Majesty celebrated 25 years on the throne. This was welcomed with street parties and parades throughout the UK and the Commonwealth, culminating in June with the official Jubilee Days held to coincide with the Queen's official birthday. As the 70s ended, Margaret Thatcher became the first female Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. As was tradition, the Prime Minister would meet the Queen in private to discuss affairs of the nation every week for the next 11 years. The 1980s began with what's been dubbed as the fairy tale wedding, watched by 750 million people worldwide. On the 29th of July 1981, the Queen's eldest son, Prince Charles, married Lady Diana Spencer at St Paul's Cathedral.
I, Charles Philip Arthur George.
I, Charles Philip Arthur George.
Take thee, Diana Frances.
Take thee, Diana Frances.
To my wedded wife.
There was a national holiday for the event, and street parties were held up and down the country to celebrate the occasion. Despite the promising start, the 80s were a challenging time for the Queen. In 1981, Her Majesty survived an assassination attempt after a man fired 6 blank shots at her as she rode down the Mall. Then, one of the most bizarre things to ever happen to the Queen.
I'm in the Queen's bedroom, so to make sure it's the Queen, I walked to the window because she's looking very small in her bed.
In the early hours of the 9th of July 1982, Michael Fagan, an unemployed man from Clerkenwell, broke into the Queen's bedroom through an open window.
And suddenly she sat up. What are you doing here? Get out, get out. And she jumps out of bed. What are you doing here?
The Smarter 7 will be right back after this. Despite their royal blood and privilege, the Queen and her family haven't been immune to the ups and downs of life. The 1990s were a particularly turbulent decade, as the Queen candidly said herself on the 24th of November when she gave a speech at the Guildhall to mark the 40th anniversary of her ascension to the throne.
1992 is not a year on which I shall look back with undiluted pleasure. It has turned out to be an annus horribilis.
That year saw the separation of 2 of her children from their spouses, a fire at Windsor Castle, and the publication of Diana, Princess of Wales' tell-all book revealing the problems in her marriage to the Queen's eldest son, Charles, and his affair with Camilla Parker Bowles. Then, in August 1997, a year after their divorce,
we have reports from Paris that Diana, Princess of Wales, has been killed in a car accident.
Her silence and the failure to fly a flag at half-mast over Buckingham Palace were met with public dismay, pressuring her to do a live television broadcast on the 5th of September, the day before Diana's funeral.
First, I want to pay tribute to Diana myself. She was an exceptional and gifted human being. In good times and bad, she never lost her capacity to smile and laugh, nor to inspire others with her warmth and kindness.
As Queen Elizabeth's reign entered the noughties, she was struck by a series of sad passings. Princess Margaret, the Queen's younger sister, died on the 9th of February 2002 after suffering a stroke aged 71. And just over a month later, the Queen also lost her mother, the Queen Mother, who died aged 101.
At Windsor Castle tonight, the Queen is mourning the loss of her mother, who at times had seemed so indestructible. She died at her home close to the castle, where she'd been since the funeral of her younger daughter, Princess Margaret, in February.
2002 began as a sad year for the Queen, but there are also happy times. Millions of people across the country came together to celebrate the Golden Jubilee. To celebrate her 50 years on the throne, the Queen and Prince Philip travelled extensively. They visited 70 cities and towns across England, Scotland, Wales, Northern Ireland, and travelled more than 30,000 miles around the world, visiting Jamaica, New Zealand, Australia and Canada. But the celebrations don't end there.
Of the couple, there's Camilla Parker Bowles, smiling, beaming. Prince Charles.
On April the 9th, 2005, her son Prince Charles married Camilla Parker Bowles, who became the Duchess of Cornwall in a civil ceremony at Windsor Guildhall, followed by a blessing at St George's Chapel, Windsor Castle.
You used to call me on my cell phone.
Moving into the present, the 2010s brought about a remarkable transformation to the crown. This decade saw the marriages of Will and Kate, Harry and Meghan, and the welcoming of a number of great-grandchildren. As the UK's longest-running head of state, the Queen's reign's been punctuated by an unprecedented series of milestones. Most have been joyous, but with Harry and Meghan in self-imposed exile...
I need to do this for my family.
And her son Andrew disappeared from public view and stripped of his royal patronages.
I have no recollection of ever meeting this lady.
And of course the death of her husband, Prince Philip.
We have been inspired by his unwavering loyalty to our Queen, by his courage, fortitude and faith.
The Queen's succession is now clearly in the mind of both the public and the Crown. Moving beyond the Platinum Jubilee, the next generation of royals will need to establish their roles in a country that may be progressing past a monarchy. It's now up to the future kings and queens of England to protect the Crown's legacy and stabilise its foundations for years to come. And whether you listeners are monarchists or Republicans, I don't think anyone can disagree that the Queen has certainly put the hours in. Happy Jubilee, ma'am. The Smart 7 is part of the Smart 7 family, written and produced by Daft Doris. Hit the follow button for daily updates at 7 a.m.